So as you could see in that video, even though I started with a good testable question, I had a difficult time saying that the change that I was making to my airplane was what was causing the change that I was measuring. So we're going to move forward learning about the scientific process today and learning how scientists need to make sure that we are giving a fair test when we're running our answering our testable questions. We need to make sure we're running a fair test. So we're working through the scientific process. We've got observations. Science then asks questions. And if you ask a testable question, you can run an investigation or do an experiment, gather data, and have your evidence ready to make a claim. And the problem that we have with our paper airplanes is that I couldn't really make a claim about the change causing the effect because it wasn't a fair test. It wasn't something where I was controlling all the other things that could go wrong or happen to my airplane. So scientists wants to gather evidence that is reliable. And then we can make claims about that evidence and then communicate our knowledge. So today we're focusing in on getting that next step, which is how do we get that science to be done properly. So we need to talk about or understand what a variable and what a fair test are. So a variable is anything that can be changed in an experiment. So with my paper airplanes, I could change the way that I threw it, how hard I threw it, how high I threw it, how low I threw it. The wind, when I was doing mine outside, it was very windy those first tests that I ran, and the wind could have an effect on it. There are lots of things that could be changing. Oh, and every time I've just remembered, every time I threw the airplane, I might be damaging it, bending it, smashing the nose in. Different things could be changing on the airplane. And those would each be a variable, because a variable is anything that can be changed in an experiment. To run a fair test, we want to have only one variable change in an experiment. We want to control everything else. So we often call them, a fair test is also called a controlled experiment, because a controlled experiment is an experiment where all the variables stay the same, except for that one thing that we are trying to change, that we are changing and trying to measure how that change makes an effect on the experiment. So a controlled experiment is a fair test for the question that we are investigating. In the choose section, in the next section, you will get a chance to watch a very short video demonstrating and explaining the steps involved in a controlled experiment.